Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today we are joined by Ryan Gavalier from Ryan's Vinyl Destination and David Gallagher from Davy's Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. Today we are looking at the 1978 M.I.U. album from the Beach Boys. This album met contractual obligations to Reprise Records, and not only did it sell poorly, but it only reached number 151 on the charts in the US. Both the critics and the fans were met with confusion by this release. Will the panel also be confused? Hold on, we will soon find out.
Firstly, I would like to apologize to those members of the audience who left last night because of my behavior. And secondly, to my family and to the rest of the group members. I made it very difficult for them to perform last night.
Were you drunk?
Huh?
Were you drunk?
I was affected. What happened was I had a Valium, which is a mild tranquilizer, and I had 2 Mai Tais, and I think it must have been the rum.
Gentlemen, how are you? And do you think that maybe rum had a lot to do with the making of this record?
No.
That's because
No.
Carl's
Actually,
barely on it, for one.
They were extremely sober for this.
Yes,
album. I'll just say
painfully
that.
sober. Painfully sober. That's why they recorded it at M.I.U.
Yeah.
But anyway, to go back to your first question, very well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, thank
Ryan,
you.
nice to see you. How's
Good to see you
everybody
too.
been? It's a beautiful
Great.
day today. Of course, it's middle of the night for Davy.
I don't remember daylight.
It doesn't matter with him.
You need to keep up this jail pale.
What's that? What?
What?
Well, anyway, Beach Boys M.I.U. album, 1978. I hadn't listened to this record for a long time. I mean, I've listened to it. Oh my God, I probably haven't listened to it. Let's say this. It's not one of the most stellar Beach Boys records. I mean, it's a contractual. This is the last record they did for Reprise Brothers. So, and there's a lot of cover versions on it. There's very little Carl on it. There's very little Dennis. There's plenty of, Brian's mixed in there to some degree, but it's
All
a lot
over.
of Mike Love. A lot of Mike Love on this record, which really should make Davy really happy, I think. But I don't know. Who wants to start?
I would like
start off.
I would like Ryan to go first, please.
Ryan. Oh, well, I know that Ryan was just kind of. He sent me a text earlier, and he's all ready to go.
Yes.
He's pretty excited about this record.
You know what my favorite album ever is? Well, it's not this, but I quite like this.
All right, since Ryan is, look at him, he is wound up. Since Ryan's
Not a
ready,
spoiler. You're not going to say this is your favorite album ever, are you?
hey, you never know. He might really dig this record.
Does anyone have to apologize for taking some Valium and some rum?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't do that stuff.
Just a little bit.
I heard the interview there. That was you talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
So-
Mr. Gavalier, let's start off with you. Go. Let's hear your thoughts on the Beach Boys M.I.U. from 1978.
So Beach Boys M.I.U.
Mhm.
This album has for a long time been known as one of the lesser Beach Boys efforts. Apparently it met critics with confusion. I don't know what the fuck they were confused about, though, honestly. I don't know.
There's a lot to be confused about.
There's one thing to be confused about with this
Yes.
album.
Okay.
And I'll get to that.
All right.
I will get to that. But for the most part, it's just a Beach Boys album. Like, it really is. Like, I mean, it gets registered as being an easy listening album. I mean, that basically means that most of their 60s stuff is easy listening then, because it really sounds like a lot of that stuff. It's like just fun songs. And I'm not going to act like this is a masterpiece. It has flaws. It has maybe the worst Beach Boys song of all time on it. And we'll get to that.
Hey, little tomboy.
Yeah, that's horrible.
It's not the first Beach Boys song. What's that?
Let's say this, Ryan. I don't think they could release that record today.
No, and I'll get to that more later. But for the most part, I really like the songs on this album. I'd say majority of this album is really, really fun to me. I think it's got some really great moments on it, and then some other really good ones and other good ones. Then, like I said, there's Hey Little Tomboy, which I think is probably the worst Beach Boys song of all time. But let's start off with She's Got Rhythm. So this one's Brian, lead vocals on here. He's doing the high vocals. He's doing he is, and he's doing the mid-range stuff in the verse.
Yes.
So he's singing all over this song, and honestly, he sounds pretty damn good, in my opinion. I really like that chorus. It's super catchy. It's got a good uplifting groove to it. The actual like rhythm backing track or whatever you want to call it is from a song from Mike Love's other project, Celebration. But honestly, I don't care because I'd rather listen to the Beach Boys than Celebration. And I think they made a really catchy song with this. I like all the different aspects that I like the saxophones and stuff. I like the flute in like the middle of the song. I like all the instrumentation on here. All the keyboards and stuff sound pretty good too. I mean, must I say, and I know Davy will question me because we talked a little bit about this off the cuff, but Brian Wilson does have 8 writing credits on this album. He also was listed as the executive producer, which I do think was probably the contract kind of stuff. Like, executive producer really means nothing, essentially. It's just a label that gets given to a lot of people, but he did have 8 writing credits. Not all like he wrote them individually, but he is listed as a writer. There has been some question of whether or not, and that's kind of what we were talking about, Davey, whether or not he did write all those songs. I'm going to go with that he did help write them, even if it was minimal help, just because I think that might not want to admit that he wrote everything on here, but I think he probably was involved. And I'm going to go with that story just because I don't have any evidence otherwise.
I don't have any evidence contrary, and Brian doesn't know, so there's no point in us really.
Yeah. Well, I'm
right.
saying
There'd be no way to back any of that up now.
Yeah.
I doubt.
Yeah.
So we can only go by what's here. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
But
I know that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, and in like biography, the biography wrote that, but Brian claims he doesn't remember making this album, so I'm going to go with that he has 8 writing credits. And you could definitely hear that he has involvement in some of the writing. I'd say if Mike Love and him are on the song, I'd say most of the time it seems like Mike Love probably wrote the lyrics. Brian probably helped with like melodies and musical arrangements and stuff, I'd say, more than anything. But I think this is a really catchy song. There is 2 covers on this album, Come Go With Me and Peggy Sue, and they were released as the 2 singles on the album, with Hey Little Tomboy as the B-side for Peggy Sue. But I like these covers, honestly. I mean, they're fun. I think like Come Go With Me, I love the Del Vikings version. I'm not going to say this is better, but it definitely sounds like a song that the Beach Boys should have been covering. And I think that their little arrangement on it sounds really good. I like all the harmonies. I like the saxophone solo in the middle of it. Like, it has an overall cool feel. I think my one thing I will criticize about this song and a couple of the other tracks is the drum sound is a bit tacky. But Al Jardine and Ron Altabach did the producing on here, so neither are really a seasoned producer. So I'd say with keeping that in mind, they did okay, but it is a little tacky at times, some of the production. Some of it sounds good though, and I will get to that more later. Like, I think She's Got Rhythm sounds excellent. Hey Little Tomboy is horrible. It's musically it's fine, and like the actual melodies and stuff is fine, but the lyrics are disgusting in every way possible. I know that people, I've heard people get upset that Brian kind of wasn't involved in a lot of creative decisions later on. But if you're writing lyrics like this, I could kind of see where that might have come from. And I love Brian Wilson to death. He's a legend, but obviously at this point he was not in his peak stability to write a song like this. Yeah,
well, Brian's forte was never lyrics, so
but they were not this bad.
Well,
They were
out of all those adult child songs, I can't believe this is the one they picked out of there. I'm just saying, but whatever.
And yeah, it's disgusting. And I mean, Mike sings on this too, and
of course he does.
Yeah, the two of them have the lead vocals on this song, and Mike's parts, he's kind of like the romancer to Little Tomboy, and it's probably the most
Davy, it's okay. We're losing Davy.
Most cringy thing I've ever heard. So this is the sore thumb on this album. This is where points I detract really come from this song, because it's truly embarrassing. I think a song like this should have never been released. And I could see why Brian was not having as many creative outputs in terms of certain things after a song like this. I mean, it has to be said that, yeah, this album didn't sell super well, but I think honestly a huge part of that's probably what Love You was too. I mean, I like Love You a lot. I think it's a great album, but it was not a commercial album. It's nutso. So are people really going to go jump to buy the next Beach Boys album after that in 1977? I think not. So I think that we have to kind of put that in perspective too. But Kona Coast, written by Al Jardine and Mike Love. Mike does the main lead vocal, and then Al does stuff on it too. Just a fun song. It's a nice, like, tropical kind of love song. It's not like reinventing the wheel or anything, but I think it's fun. It's upbeat. I think it's funny. I like the melodies that Mike has, like there's one secret thing I always wanted to try. Like, it's just like, it's it's just funny. Like, and it's just a catchy song. And I think that goes for a lot of the stuff on here, just really catchy. Peggy Sue, I actually like quite a bit. And I liked Come Go With Me as well. I have to give a disclaimer. I'm not really a Buddy Holly fan. I don't like his voice at all. I would much rather hear Al Jardine sing, honestly, because I think Al Jardine's on fire on this album. His vocals sound fantastic, and he nails it on this song. I mean, he gives this track a new life. I mean, there's some mild production issues, but I like the electric piano that Brian does on it. It's just a cool rendition of the song. It's very different than the original, but I think it works really well. And I would have, if I was going to do a single, I would have done one of those covers and then something original, because I do think there is originals on here that could have been a single, in my opinion, and I'll get to that later. But side one ends with Won't You Come Out Tonight, which was written by Brian and Mike, and the two of them sing the lead vocals together. Another catchy song. I like this one. It has a kind of weird feel with the drums, and like the overall production just kind of has like a skeezy type of feel, but it's just like a catchy old-timey pop type of song, and I like that. So side two, I think, is really strong, like across the board. It starts with Sweet Sunday Kind of Love, which is the one Carl Wilson lead vocal on here, and Brian and Mike wrote the song. This is a beautiful song. It's got a great arrangement to it. Carl sounds on top of his game. Just a really infectious vocal performance. It almost sounds like a song that Dennis could have done as well, but I think that having Carl doing it worked because he just has that gentle kind of voice that, like, whenever he sings, you kind of get in your feels a little bit. It's just like he's just really great at channeling that, and it's just a sweet romantic kind of song. has a very old timey, like kind of 60s feel to it. But what I was going at is that Carl visited for 2 days at this whole thing, because Mike had the whole album get recorded at M.I.U. to keep them away from drug suppliers and stuff. Like, that was the whole reason that they did it at this place, because he was trying to keep the drugs out of the recording. And so they got Carl to come for 2 days. And Dennis came for like 1, I think, because he was busy with his solo album at the time too. But we'll get to his stuff later. But I think Sweet Sunday Kind of Love is a really, really nice, tender song. There's nice strings on it and stuff too. Bells of Paris, written by Brian Wilson, Mike Love, and Ron Altbach. I think it's a catchy song. I think that Mike Love's verse is a little tacky, but it kind of has a charm to it for me, like kind of in like almost an ironic way. Like I don't hate it, and I enjoy listening to the song, but I love the harmonies during the chorus. They just have a really great sound, and I think the arrangement's cool too. You can have like, you do have the sleigh bells, you have like some strings and keyboards and stuff, and it's just overall kind of an interesting arrangement. Pitter Patter's fun. This actually does sound like it could have been a Love You song, honestly. It's got a real quirky type of feel. Brian, Mike, and Al wrote this one, and Mike and Al sang on it, but I definitely think musically it's probably one of the more Brian Wilson sounding songs with that quirky keyboard line. I just think this is a really fun one overall. I mean, it's silly lyrics, but I mean, it's the same band that wrote Solar System on the last album, and Johnny Carson. So I'm okay with silly. And this is a great song too. I'm fine with cheesy lyrics. I think it's fun. They were. My Diane is one of the highlights on this album, honestly. It's Dennis Wilson's one lead vocal on here, and Brian wrote the song by himself, which is redemption from Hey Little Tomboy. This was a song that was a leftover from Love You. I'm so glad that it got on this album. It's a really tender, kind of haunting ballad. A lot of pain here, just talking about Diane, who I read that Brian probably wrote the song around 1973 or 74. It's based off a woman he had an affair with who was named Diane.
It was Marilyn's sister.
Sister-in-law.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just think it's a really haunting song, really, really emotional, and Dennis gives a great vocal performance on it. I really dig Match Point of Our Love. This is one that Brian Wilson and Mike Love wrote together. Brian does all the lead vocals on it. It's kind of got a nice little easygoing disco kind of feel, little swinging drum beat, cool little guitar, and just really catchy melody, honestly. I was just singing along to it, listening to it today. I mean, I have to give a disclaimer. I've probably listened to this album about 10 times this week. I think it's really fun, but this is one of the more singable, kind of dance to this song a little bit. I think it's really catchy. And Winds of Change was actually written by Ron, who I must say is a touring keyboardist for the band. And then Ed Toleja, I don't even know who the hell that is, but like, Ron was the keyboardist, and you could definitely hear that he would have something to do with this, because there's a lot of like, this is the song that sounds like an easy listening type of song. It's a very AOR sounding ballad sang by Al and Mike Love. It's kind of cheesy, but I like it. I mean, as they talk about like change and stuff throughout the song, I think it has good intentions. It's kind of emotional. It's cheesy, but you know what? Like, I'm okay with it. I mean, I just think that it has good intentions, and it's just a nice tender song. And it's a solid closer for the album. I'll say positives of the album. Like I said, it's generally a really fun album. I think that for the most part, the songs are pretty catchy, and like, I could think of the melodies on it, and I could think of like what the actual songs are. There's not really anything on it where I forget what the song is, even though there's songs I don't really like Hey Little Tomboy. I think there's some cool arrangements. I think that honestly, all the vocals sound really good, and I think Brian sounded even better on here than he did on Love You vocally. I think obviously still has some of the cigarette damage to his voice, but like obviously on like She's Got Rhythm, he could still hit those high notes pretty well, so that's cool. And negatives, Hey Little Tomboy, obviously, I think that's a huge stain on the album. I think if that wasn't on here, it'd probably get even better reception than it did. I'd say some of the production isn't great, but a lot of it doesn't bother me, honestly. I mean, there's a few albums in the 70s that had kind of sketchy production with the Beach Boys. It's not like this was the first one that had a sketchy production. I'd say that a lot of why this album gets hate seems almost because like some of the band members really shat on the album, but I'll say if it sold better, I don't think they'd be shitting on it. It's one of those dichotomies where it's like, are they just being sore losers? And I think that's possible. I think there's, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I just think that if you look at the catalog that was coming out in the 70s, I mean, quite a few of those albums were uneven. I mean, we talked about Carl and the Passions. I really like the album, but it's definitely uneven. It's like there's a lot of imperfect stuff during this era. But I think that when I look at an album, how does it make me feel? And overall, this album kind of like brightened my day when I was listening to it. I had fun with it. I was singing along to the songs. Gives me a good nostalgic feel of like old 60s music, especially with some of the covers and stuff. I mean, overall, I just have positive feelings about the album, except for Hey Little Tomboy, which is so cringy. It just hurts, honestly. But overall, like I said, I have positive feelings. And I think that when you have the band talk so badly about the album and then critics were confused by it, I mean, honestly, like, what was the band going to do? Like, what were they going to do?
I don't really get the confusion, to be honest.
Yeah. They already made Pet Sounds. They already released Smiley Smile. They already released Love You. They released Surf's Up. They released all these Friends. They released a lot of weird albums.
But I think just Love You would do it. I think that would be the one that makes you go, huh?
Yeah, I mean, and like, I just have to say, like, I think it's okay that they made a safe album. I mean, they had to make money at some point. Like, honestly, and I mean, it didn't work out that way, but I think that's probably largely because of the fact that it was released right after Love You, which was a critical fail. I mean, not a critical, well, kind of at the time, critical failure and commercial failure. I mean, one of the weirdest albums they ever put out. So that's going to lose a lot of people who like them for the more mainstream stuff. And second of all, they released as singles 2 covers, and Hey Little Tomboy is the B-side. So I think there was a lot of things going against the album commercially that wasn't actually the album itself. I think it was a lot of bad decisions. And it was also 1978. I mean, the Beach Boys had been out for like damn near over 15 years at this point.
I mean,
they were past their prime. Like, they really were. And like, I mean, they were still making cool stuff, but a lot of people were jumping off ship well before this one. I mean, even album like Sunflower was the lowest selling at the time that it was released. Like, they were on a downward slope. So I think that when this album gets looked at for its commercial failure and then critical, I think there's a lot of things that are going against it that isn't just the album. And I, as a listener, say I think it's a really enjoyable album, and I don't think that there's much about it that's bad. I mean, there is bad moments and there's flaws, but overall, I think it's a nice, easygoing, kind of safe record that you can have a lot of fun with. And because of that, I'm going to give it A 3 out of 5, 6 out of 10. I don't think it reinvented the wheel. It's not Pet Sounds. It's not Sunflower. It's not Smiley Smile. And there is some flaws, but it's an album that I have no problem putting on and listening to, and I probably will many times in the future because I like it. It just, I think it's a lot of fun.
Excellent, Ryan. I thought I'm impressed that you're able to pull something out of this record. Of course, that's what's a beautiful thing about you, Ryan. You can look at some of these albums that you always can find something really positive to say about damn near any record.
Thank you.
Yeah, we ain't 0 stars, people.
Yeah. Us people up on the top row. Yeah. But Zeb said Adult Child should have been released in that Christmas album. Then A Few Good Songs on M.I.U. would be an EP in 1979 before keeping the Summer Alive, which to me is a better LP.
Well, you have LA album in the middle there.
Well, I think Adult Child should have been released. I don't think Adult Child's all that bad.
Adult Child would just have been Love You Part 2.
Exactly. But you know what? I'm surprised, Zeb, and I'm surprised that's never come out with all these Beach Boys reissues. Maybe.
Well, it has, because on the 30th anniversary box set, you get 3 tracks from it. You get 1 track from it here, so you've got half the album already. Really.
Well,
There's only 8 tracks on it.
But I mean, like a proper release, you know.
For 4 tracks, I think.
Yeah, why not? They're hardcore. Well, there used to be hardcore Beach Boys fans out there.
Yeah.
But I do agree, Zeb. I think Keeping the Summer of Lives is a much better LP.
Well, it's an interesting point about the Christmas album, because that was their backup plan, was to try and give this one to Reprise, get away with it, and then start with a big Christmas album. Maharishi International University, Ernest.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're still there, but they were in Fairfield, Iowa. So there you go.
They are. There's a big documentary about them. It's really, really dark. I won't go into it, but it's really dark. Oh my goodness. Goes really culty. That's CULT.
But I have to just say, unlike Ryan, though, I didn't really hear anything weird production-wise. Actually, I thought Al Jardine did a great job.
I think there's a couple parts where the drum sound is a little bit off. That's the only thing for me. I think at times the drum sound's a little too bright, especially on the covers, where it feels like it was like, it does feel more like an overdub than anything. That's the only thing production-wise for me. I think otherwise all the vocals sound really good. All the keyboards sound really good. And on most of the songs, the drums sound fine. It's just a couple tracks. But like I said, I think this is overall a really cool album. I say 3 out of 5.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I know Brian, God, what the hell am I talking about? Brian Wilson's all through it. And you hear a lot of harmonies like he was able to pull them off like he was in 1966. Yeah. And I keep wondering, were all these tracks recorded at, the Maharishi International University, or were they old? Because I can't imagine he would be able to pull that off.
Ryan and I were saying we'll never know the truth, because Brian's official biography says that he was not part of the writing. The liners say otherwise, but the biography says he was credited purely so they could make it look more like, look, Brian's in the back every time they tried to.
Did you hear him though? He's on here a lot.
Yeah, I hear him.
So I think what's happened is they've taken bits of Brian, put them up, bits that wouldn't constitute a writing credit if it was anybody else. Because Brian came up with the saxophone lines and a couple of things. That wouldn't normally get you a writing credit, just coming up with the saxophone.
But if Brian's on a song, you cannot miss his chord progressions, his keyboard work. It totally sounds like him.
I don't know. I think at this point the band are becoming very expert at sounding like the Beach Boys, and that'll be pretty much the thesis.
Well, that could be.
I have to disagree. I think that there's a lot of revisionism that's come through time to make the narrative sound better. I think I hear him on quite a bit of this stuff, even if it's not huge parts, but I do hear him. But like we said, we'll never know for sure. I'm going to go by the liner notes because it's just, I don't want to trust
the liner notes, and I've got them here, are total bullshit. I mean, the guy says that this is one of their crowning achievements at one point. Yeah, I mean, it says what this album has in common with Surf's Up and Good Vibrations is being amongst the most admirable and rewarding creations of one of the greatest of all American music legends. Come on, really? This is one of the most admirable and creative.
I don't know about that.
That is somebody writing a liner note saying, "Oh, I better be very nice to this."
I don't know about that part, but I do like the album. I'm gonna leave it at that.
I mean, and I think 3's 3 out of 5.
That's fair. But if you were writing the liner notes, I know you wouldn't be sitting there saying this is as good as Pet sounds. I mean,
no, I mean, but nothing was going to be as good as Pet sounds. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, Smile is not even as good as Pet sounds.
Nobody's expecting that, but this certainly is, which is bizarre. If I wasn't reading that myself, I'd think that was made up. In that sense, like there's hyperbole and then there's this, and that's just nonsense.
Yeah,
I didn't need.
I read reviews that were hyperbole in the other direction, saying this is one of the worst albums written by any rock artist, and that's total BS.
That's nonsense. Yeah,
that's nonsense.
That is nonsense. But in the Beach Boys canon, yeah.
But so Adam says that Light Album is better than M.I.U. Adam, I'm with you. And both are better than Keeping Summer Alive. Adam, I'm with you again. Yes, well, that is exactly.
You think M.I.U.'s better than Keeping Summer Alive? No.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. Yes. You think so too?
On a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday too. But it doesn't mean it's Pet Sounds. So this all needs to come.
Oh, none of these records ever could get that close. So Brian was on fire then.
It's all on a sliding scale. So I mean, I'll jump into my thoughts then. We'll get this going. Ryan nailed most of that. No, Ryan nailed all of it.
Ryan did nail it.
Yeah. Nailed it. I mean, we've got Ron Altback and Al Jardin here. And they're very much the only ones left that can do it that are connected to the band. Ron and what's his name? Who was the co-writer on the last track?
Ed something.
Ed Taraja.
Oh. Ed Taraja.
They were in the band King Harvest, who had Dancing in the Moonlight, and they were in Mike's band Celebration. I mean, Dancing in the Moonlight is a great kind of 70s pop song, so you can see where the sensibilities would line up. They did that disco album with Mike Love, and it killed Celebration's career. Who would have known that Mike Love's disco album wouldn't be a big success?
I'm surprised.
Yeah. Celebration time indeed. Yes. But for what this is, I think the critics are full of bullshit in both directions. If this guy is a critic, then he's wrong. It's right. Come on, that's just hyperbole. That's silly even for a Beach Boys fan to read, comparing it to the masterpieces. But at the same time, Ryan's right. We've got albums coming up by the very same band, never mind by any major American band, by the very same band that are 10 times worse than this. We've got the self-titled one. We've got Still Cruising, where they're so lazy they just reuse old recordings. We've got the 1992, I wouldn't even say the name of it in case it summons into existence. We've got Stars and Stripes, where they just round up anybody from Nashville who'll sing vocals for them, basically. Oh, goodness gracious, great balls of hope.
Yeah, compared to those, this looks brilliant.
What I think's happened is this was the orthodoxy of 1978, and people just haven't remembered to bump this up as worse things have come out afterwards because they completely ignored them, basically. So in 1978, maybe you could make a case this was the worst Beach Boys album. I wouldn't agree. There's a couple of those early albums, actually. It's just, it's really not the Beach Boys on a couple of those very, very early albums where it's instrumentals, like their version of Dick Dale and stuff. That's not even any of them playing. So it's hard to really compare. But let's review what's here rather than what's not. She's Got Rhythm. Are either of you familiar with Brian's solo album from 2004, Getting In Over My Head?
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I've never heard it. I know what it is. I haven't heard it though.
First of all, it got totally overshadowed because it came out the same year as his version of Smile, obviously. Totally overshadowed. But it starts with a song called How Could We Still Be Dancing? And it's very much like this. And I mean that in a positive way. I mean, it's got this fun, upbeat vibe to it. So that's Brian almost copying Brian. But on that, it's Elton John doing the lead vocal, which is fantastic. And Carl Wilson's last vocals on that as well, on Soul Searching. So it's a recommended Brian solo record. But she's got rhythms, just a really simple old school, like, yeah. Like, it would just get you smiling, upbeat, clicking your fingers. There's no pretension about this whatsoever. But if this was on any Beach Boys album of the 60s, bar the really massive ones, I wouldn't have any problem with it. No problem with it whatsoever. I think it's a fantastically fun opener to the record.
I think it's a great opener. I do agree.
Probably to set the expectations a little bit too high. Maybe that's an issue as well. And at the same time, I think that should have been the single. I think that should easily have been the single. No doubt about it. It wouldn't have done business because the Beach Boys just weren't at this point, but that's by the by. At least it would have been out there. Come and Go With Me. Al sounds fantastic, but Al sounds fantastic right now. He's 80 years old.
Yes.
Al's got a fantastic voice. His album, Postcard from California from 2010, is one of my favourite side projects from any member of the band. You could say it's a little bit pointless doing this Del Vikings cover in what they cut it in 77, because it was already such a famous song anyway. And it was still in the pop culture because American Graffiti had it on the soundtrack just a few years earlier. So it's already everywhere. It's not, it's not as if it's an old song that they're kind of digging up and going, hey, remember this? It would have been very much zeitgeisty. But again, that's part of the Beach Boys' real kind of charm, is that they can incorporate something and say, look, we're part of this lineage, and here's some doo-wop to show you. And I think it works really well. We're starting with a real 1-2 punch, I think, really, which people probably wouldn't expect based on this album's reputation. Hey, little tomboy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Now, there was going to be two versions of this conversation. There was going to be the, and I'm in a nice mood, so I'm going to give you the very nice, polite version, but there was going to be a that's total shite version of this as well, where I
was thinking that, Davy. I was thinking that.
But it's not worth it for one track. I won't let you do it to me, because I'll need to blame people that I actually like here, and in a strange way, it's so inappropriate it kind of makes me laugh that it's somehow out there. I mean, it sounds like it should now be taken off of this album if it's ever refreshed, doesn't it? I mean,
it's
time to turn into a girl.
Oh,
come sit on my lap.
They're doing it all over the world. And then when Mike, and this image will never leave me, when Mike sings, I'm gonna teach you how to kiss. It's gonna feel just like this. Jesus, I'm vomiting. I mean, Ryan knows I had a really lovely roast wild boar dinner the other night. I could still regurgitate parts of that because this made me so sick. Hearing Mike Love singing about a little child having their first kiss with the bald, massive bearded Mike Love. Oh,
ooh,
God.
His hairy body and all that.
guys, come on.
They're doing it all over the world. Then take me to another planet. Get me on Jeff Bezos' rocket. If this is happening all over the world, I am leaving stop the world. I want to get off. It is absolutely awful. But in the context of Adult Child, where Brian was doing explorations of, thank you, Star, when people were,
we love his vocal work.
Better than Mike Love's. In the context of Adult Child, I don't think it's as inappropriate, because Adult Child was taking the idea of picking moments from a life. But 50 years on, it still wouldn't be appropriate, and we can never reissue it. And let's just move on and pretend it's never happened to anybody. I'm not gonna excuse Brian. I'm not gonna excuse. No, I'll never excuse Mike. But everybody involved, let's remember they all had to sign off on this being recorded. So, blame for all the Beach Boys here. I'm blaming Boris Johnson, and he's not even on this album. That's how much anger I've got. I'm blaming Glenn Campbell. He stopped playing with him 12 years.
You're going to blame Glenn too?
I'll blame everybody who's... Hal Blaine is getting blamed for this. Anybody who's even been in the studio with them should be mortified.
Carol Kay's getting blamed.
No, Carol's lovely.
She is
Kona Coast. I don't know. I don't even like saying that. Kona Coast. It sounds as if I'm about to make myself swear. Well, Kona Coast. Kona Coast. I don't know. It just sounds weird. If you can't rip yourselves off, who can you rip off? I mean, they basically just take Hawaii, don't they? I mean, it's pretty much just Hawaii.
It's pre-Kokomo.
Well, this is my note. They've got Hawaii because it literally does the Hawaii,
which is brilliant.
And then here's exactly what I've written down here. Sounds like proto-Kokomo. Mike will do a lot of Love in a Tropical Island tracks after this. And here's very much his cha-cha-cha ending for this one. When that hits in, I just burst out laughing. I mean, it's awful. It's atrocious. Kona Coast
I kind of like it.
I love it.
It's terrible. And when it ends with the da-da-da, oh, come on. This is the Beach Boys, and they're ending with a da-da-da.
This is foreshadowing of things to come.
And then it's got, right, you can talk all day about the lyrics to Tomboy. I think there's a worse lyric in this. It's been my secret passion to try it. In Captain Cook fashion, I can't deny it. Captain Cook was eaten by cannibals. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Got to take it for face value, I think.
Right, so my secret passion to try it in Captain Cook fashion, I can't deny it. So I want to be eaten by cannibals is what Mike's singing here.
Might be a Morrissey lyric.
It may be one of those freaks that you get in the end. Well, I'm one of those freaks you get on the internet too, so maybe I'll meet up with him sometime. But hey, no,
I think I know what Mike was talking about.
But no, I don't think.
Not wink, wink.
No, I don't think he's that clever. I don't think he's that clever. We're talking about actual cannibalization of a seafaring legend, folks. Captain Cook, Peggy Sue. I really like it, and it's another one just like the Del Vikings cover when I'm seeing it myself. But why? Why? And then I listened to Al singing, and he's singing as if he's written it. He's not singing. The worst track on 15 Big Ones for me is Rock and Roll Music, because it just sounds so bored with the Al singing this as if his life depended on it, and it's got a brilliant arrangement.
He's the producer. He's all over it.
Yeah, I mean,
passionate.
I think they just hit record and hope for the best, to be honest.
That's what I think too.
Yeah. Because by this point, they know how to sound like the Beach Boys. If nothing else, they know how to sound like Beach Boys. So, especially with the addition of two members of King Crimson in your touring band.
King Harvest.
No, Robert Fripp's on this.
Robert Fripp produced it. Hell, Daryl Hall might be. Maybe Daryl's still the high point.
Did you know that Mike Love was the first choice to be the lead singer on Discipline?
That's bullshit. God.
Oh boy, can you imagine?
21st century.
I would pay to see that though.
Oh God. Oh, his version of 3 of a Perfect Pair would be a rather.
What if he sang
wonderful? Right. God. Yeah. I mean, I. If you've heard, has anybody heard the Ultimate Christmas compilation by the Beach Boys, just called Ultimate Christmas? It takes the original Christmas album, but it takes this Buddy Holly cover, the exact music for it, so just instrumental, and makes a new song out of it called Christmas Time Is Here Again. So you get to hear modern Beach Boys, which by that stage is singing Christmas time is here again. Not Peggy. Right, okay, they don't sing Peggy Sue.
What the hell
But
is
it is kind
happening
of
here
bizarre
tonight?
because on that album you also get some of the Christmas outtakes that were from these sessions because they didn't know whether or not they could get away with selling a Christmas album again, so that made a commercial idea. So it's quite interesting that they turned a Buddy Holly track into a Christmas track 20 years later, when nobody was buying the records except for me, having to go to 20 record shops going, have you got Stars and Stripes Volume 1, please?
The only person.
I'm still waiting on Volume 2. Won't come out tonight. It's just forgettable. I mean, the minute it's like eating lettuce. The minute it's done, you've forgotten you've ever had any nutritional value whatsoever. It just there's nothing there. It dissipates into the ether. And Mike uses this very nasal style that unfortunately is just the make love sound going forwards. From rock, it's again the rock and roll music voice going forward. Blow your nose, Mike. Blow your nose, man. So yeah, Sweet Sunday kind of love. How wonderful that it starts with the line, there's something so special about it. What it is, I can't say. I can say Carl Wilson's here. That's what's special about it. Carl's here.
Yeah.
Yes. This is like when you're at a party and you're bored out your tits, and then somebody you know is going to liven the whole thing up has just walked in, and you go, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Carl Wilson showed up. It's not actually a very party track, but there you go. At least it's good.
At least he's here, though. Thank God.
So it's a really nice ballad. Obviously, as Ryan said, it feels like the kind of thing that Denny would actually have done in more of this era's Beach Boys albums, being a more piano-led ballads. Carl can do this kind of thing in his sleep. It doesn't challenge him, it doesn't push him, but it's still it's gorgeous. And it does have that family feel that's missing, a lot of the overlapping harmonies that's just missing from a lot of this album. So I like a lot of what's been presented along the way. This shows what has been missing. Bells of Paris, oh my goodness. The chorus sounds nice for the harmonies, but that's the very least I expect from a Beach Boys album is the harmonies are okay. Talk about your bad lyrics. I mean, every cliche in the book. Beaujolais, Montmartre, baguettes, Champs-Elysees, the Eiffel Tower. Everything is thrown in here in the most cliched. It may as well be called Frog's Legs. Like, I mean, it is the most cliched, like, let's vaguely sing about France song I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it may as well be like, why don't we have a baguette? You can tell me about our love that hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's just boring nonsense in the verses, waiting for some harmonies to kick in. But I kind of had fun predicting Mike's next rhyme and how bad it would be. And usually, Mike was worse than my guess. I mean, he pronounces Montmartre as Montmartre, so he can rhyme it with priceless art. I have been to Montmartre. I had a very good night in Montmartre. It's one of the few places you could still get proper absinthe. That was a few years ago now. And I guarantee you, Mike Love has never been to Montmartre in his life. If he thinks this is the kind of music that you'd get shot in Montmartre if you were playing music like this.
Probably been to Kmart though.
Yeah. But would somebody like to hear some praise for Mike Love?
Yeah.
I would like to hear some praise from you, if that's what you're getting at.
I really like Pitter Patter, and I think Mike Love sounds fantastic on it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Pitter Patter's one of the better examples of Mike sounding like he cares, and it's a bit more than getting a record into the record company's hands, and he's really belting it. It sounds like Mike is back in the. Because as much as I don't want Mike, that's because we've been covering the 70s stuff. If we were doing the mid-60s stuff, you would hear a lot more praise from me for Mike. I'd still make fun of this guy because he's a total twat, but but I'd be praising the good stuff. And Pitter Patter to me is one of the good things. Again, it's a Brian co-write. And you've got some great stuff from Al on the choruses as well. It's one of the examples of Mike and Al doing really well as a tandem, which doesn't happen too often. Sometimes they can there's not a great balance between them, I guess. You can't beat the Wilsons family harmonies, can you, really? So Al and Mike didn't really stand a chance, but like when it's going like "Let It Rain," and that sounds more actually gospel than their fake gospel track that we covered the last time. What was that called? He come down. He come down. Right. This sounds more authentic. If they'd done something in this style for "He Come Down" and used a different title. Then Pitter Patter really shows what they could have done. I mean, I think it's a real fun little pop rocker. Actually, I think it's actually a slight walk towards power pop in a strange way for the Beach Boys, which is kind of cool here. And Mike sounds great on it. Hi, Mike. My Diane. I don't know why I put this in this note here, but this is where I noted it. Asked about the album in the 1979 interview, Dennis Wilson says, "I hope that Karma will fuck up Mike Love's Meditation forever. That album is an embarrassment. It should self-destruct."
I'm ready, baby.
That is one of the... Right, okay. It doesn't date well because... Dennis would be the one that self-destructed a few months after giving that quote. Unfortunately, never made it much beyond that. But
yeah. He didn't die until 83. He has some time left. He's all right.
He wasn't doing well in between that time.
Yeah, it wasn't living at large in 80 and 81. Let's be honest.
There, you must read this too. There's some neat gems there, but there wasn't any coherence. Mike Love in 1992.
God, and for Mike to criticize anything involving Mike, it must be considered a nuclear bomb in his head.
I don't know. It was a bad. Don't forget that the Beach Boys weren't getting along very well in this time period.
No, I think Ryan's right. This was number one. Then Mike would be out there on stage every night singing all these tracks. Mike's a hack. Makes a total hack. Again, My Diane outtake from Love You. It's the only way they could get Denny to appear on it. I don't think it's one of the best tracks from the Love You sessions. I think there's a reason it was an outtake, but I do like that it was obviously an outtake, so we have some Denny to appear. Otherwise, there would be a real imbalance. Only having one Carol and no Denny, it would be like, the 80s.
Yeah, right. Like the 80s.
Well, that's what it is.
Well, you're right.
It is. That's what the Beach Boys are in the 80s. God forbid the 90s. Match point of our love. Ryan, I think you're nuts. Right,
shit! How'd that get in there?
That is the one. Ryan, I think you're nuts. Match Point of Our Love doesn't have a cool fun disco arrangement. It has a Barry Manilow arrangement. That's what
like Copacabana.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, you can just imagine somebody wearing Brute aftershave with their big collars dancing to this. It is an embarrassment. I hate this track so much. And no, don't excuse this, Ryan. How can you possibly have a song that has tennis as its metaphor and not use the idea that love in tennis means nothing? That is the most obvious thing you can do with a song that's written about tennis. And by the way, you shouldn't be writing a song about tennis. It's not a particularly interesting subject matter to try and turn into a love song. But love, literally, in tennis means nothing. When you score nothing, you are 15 love. Oh, it's amazing I never thought of that. But then again, we're talking about, Mike Love in a really bad place, Brian Wilson, so perhaps I shouldn't be that surprised. Sparkly sound effects. I mean, there was a little glittery noise at one point going, no. Full disco beat. No. Winds of Change. I'll give them this. It's very different to the Scorpions cover from later on.
You can't even. They don't even sound hardly any. I can't even tell them.
I know. What
I
a
don't
great
know.
job Scorpions did rearranging that track. They were clearly going for that big piano ballad to close it off. But it ends up being very treacly and saccharine. Dumb with the notes. The I don't hate it. I don't hate it as a closer, but it's very much a defeated closer where it sounds like this is what we've got left. We've got a vague piano ballad with some very vague love lyrics in it, and love in the romantic sense rather than the make sense for a change. But it just sounds like a defeated act at that point. That probably the real reason the two covers are on there earlier on is the lack of material. We know that there was fractions in the band. We know that Carl and Dennis were not in a good place. Brian was there, but not there. And to me, the overall problem with the album isn't so much the individual tracks. It is, and here's something I never thought I'd say. It's a lack of coherence, just like Mike Love said. There is a lack of overall vision, especially on side 2 for me, where it just sounds like this will do. This sounds a bit Beach Boys, doesn't it? This sounds like the kind of thing we do. Yeah, let's do that. But it doesn't have the really dense harmonies that you get when you have Carl and Dennis. It doesn't have the really clever and deft ideas from Brian. So you might have some nice harmonies, but you're going to get that because these guys have been doing it for 18 albums. It doesn't have the spark from Brian Wilson. And again, there's reasons for that. I don't think it's a real reason to criticize it too much. And as Ryan said, they've been churning out music for so long at this point that how long can you expect somebody to keep producing magic after magic? Overall, though, I think the critics that say it's one of the worst things ever should be taken out back and made to listen to all of Make Love solo albums. I mean, it's not the worst thing. It really isn't. It's not the best thing. It's definitely not the worst thing. It's probably not even middling for me. It sits somewhere bang in there, just underneath middling. So I'd say on a 5 scale, would you use, Grant? I'll go for 2. Can we do quarters? I'll go 2.25 because some of the unintentional laughs, like, oh, come on, Mike, you can't rhyme this. You can't rhyme. Oh, he's just done it. He's done it. Oh, you idiot. That kind of stuff kind of cheered me up a little bit. So it's not a disaster. It really isn't a disaster. To take out basically the Wilsons are not here because Brian is the only Wilson here, but he's not here. So the Wilsons were essentially out, and you've got Al and Mike trying to keep things together. It's a sign of things to come. You're getting little inklings of them trying to hold on to their Beach Boys identity. But for what it is, it could have been so much worse. So if it steals the show, I'm afraid it's still petty theft. But for what it is, it's not even the worst 70s Beach Boys album for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. All I can say is I think you two have hit it out of the park today. Holy shit, you two are on fire. And I think you totally nail it. I think so. Dave, you're going to go 2.5, you said?
Well, okay. I said 2.25. If I have to pick one of the two, I know I'll bump it up rather than bump it down because I was nice to Mike today for a little bit, a little tiny bit. I was also very cruel to him. So yeah, let's bump it up.
All right.
2.5 if I can't have my quarter.
I really don't want to really listen to this record again. The thing that drives me crazy about it, she's got rhythm, it's fine, but we're talking 19. It could have been on 15 big ones. It might have fit better on there, but we're talking 1978. I mean, put it on like a Beach Boys record from 64. You would have been all right. Or maybe 2020. You've got Do It Again on there. So it might have fit better on 2020. The remakes, yeah, they're fine. They sound okay, but it's just filler. There's nothing on this record that really. It's really a bunch of filler, and the music I think's okay. There's nothing life changing here, and like you said, we're missing the vocals of Carl and Dennis, and we do have Brian Wilson. I don't know how Brian could sing those high parts, but evidently his voice miraculously came back. But yes, we miss Carl and Dennis, and what we do have from them, I really appreciate, because I think, and I think My Diane, though the lyrics kind of drive me crazy. I think Dennis sounds pretty good. I love to listen to Dennis. I think my favorite tracks would have to be, God, you're gonna hate me, but Kona Coast. I'm like with Ryan, for some reason, I know, but it sounds like Mike's trying to reach back to, Hawaii. We're trying to go back to 1964, when we're not trying to fuck up the formula. They're trying to bring the formula back, though. You can't bring it back in 1978. But I have to admit, when they did Kokomo, even though it drives me crazy, they had a huge hit. And compared to a lot of the other music that was out when Kokomo was out, it was very refreshing. I'll leave it there.
Tom Cruise.
I love Kokomo.
Okay. I refuse to believe that Kokomo would have been anywhere near successful if it wasn't on the Cocktail soundtrack.
It's so
fit
catchy.
Perfectly on there, you have to admit.
Yeah.
But Kona Coast, the lyrics are questionable, but it does remind me back at a more pure and innocent time in the Beach Boys. So I can't hate it at all. Peggy, it's fine. Like you guys said, Al sings the hell out of it. He's feeling this, but I don't think we need to hear it. It should have been on 15 Big Ones, not on this record. We're going to really whittle this down to an EP, like Zeb said earlier. We could whittle this album down. Won't you come out tonight? It's okay. Sweet Sunday Kind of Love. I can't remember if it's Davy or it was Ryan. Carl sounds absolutely.
We both said, yeah.
It's absolutely. It's one of the best tracks on the record.
It's Carl Wilson.
Right. So when you finally get a Carl track on here, it's like, whoa, it's like a breath of fresh air. That's the problem with this record. We're missing the Wilson brothers.
Yeah.
I applaud Al and Mike for keeping it together and trying to put out a record. I get it. Good for them. They're trying to keep the machine going. But man, if you don't have the rest of the Wilson brothers, you're hurting, kids. Bells of Paris, meh. Pitter Patter, I have to agree with Davy on that. This has to be one of Mike Love's. I think the songs. Side 2 seems to be a lot more stronger to me than side 1.
I agree. I love side 2.
I don't know why, but it does. And My Diane, lyrics drive me crazy, but it's refreshing to hear Dennis. And all I can keep thinking is, because we know what it's about. It's about his affair with Marilyn's sister, and it just, I don't know, just kind of leave a bad taste in my mouth because he can't get over her.
Yeah, but only Brian could do that and still come off as kind of sweet. He writes a song.
And Marilyn still keeps married to him. That's weird. Match Point of Our Love, Winds of Change. This album only clocks in at 32 minutes.
Yeah, that's another thing. It doesn't stay long enough to offend you, so come on.
Well, right. I'm not offended. I'm used to the main problem I have with this song is not the music so much. It's just the horrible lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, outside of early Mike,
it's right up there with some Kiss albums. Huh?
But outside of early Mike, Van Dyke Parks and Tony Asher, they've never been a great lyrical band.
No.
Yeah, but
even early Mike, it's
better than this.
Yeah,
better
but
than this, but
for what it was, it's teenage poetry, which I quite like. For this era, it really is just what rhymes with what. Didn't we play a concert in Paris?
Yeah, they didn't put a lot of thought into it.
Okay, Paris. Eiffel. We're in a trifle.
Trifle Tower.
Yeah. Oh,
It's just horrible. I just sit there and cringe when I listen to it. But musically, it doesn't bother me. But lyrically, it's a bit hard for me to handle.
it's quite funny.
I mean, it's kind of sad, to be quite honest. Kind of sad. But
I know what Brian's going to go on to do, so I get to have my Brian. Mike can keep the name to himself. That's fine. It's fine.
Well, I'm going to give this record a 2-star out of 5. If you look at the reviews, All Music gave it 2, Blender gave it 2.
I think that's quite
Robert
high.
Christgau gave it
Most of your review was just, yeah.
Well, yeah, but we haven't gotten to this record yet, so
you need
remains to be seen. We'll get to 0.
Yeah.
But in fact, that would be on That's Total Shite instead of this. It's going to be a double whammy series.
Crossover.
I have said that since episode 1 of this series that no Beach Boys album can or ever will be as offensive as that album. I quite like the wheel on the cover. That's
well, the artwork is the best thing.
Yeah, and look, there's a tropical island paradise there. I wonder if there's loads of songs about it.
Yes, God, I hope there's some songs out there that they can take. Oh, Stars Laughing Again. Trifle Tower, that's what I said, yeah. Well, so I'm going to give it a 2. Davy's going to go with I'm
2.5.
Not too far off. And then Ryan's going with a 3.
Yep.
I think all fair reviews. I think you two hit it out of the freaking park today, though. Holy crap. You can tell Ryan listened to this damn record 10 times. Listen to it. He's listened to it so much he likes it.
I mean,
give it 3. Let's not.
I have to say, like, I gave it a 3 objectively. Like, I enjoy the album. I was honestly kind of dreading starting prepping for this one because I don't know. I just like I had only heard the album maybe like once before a while ago at the record store that I work at because we had a copy, and at that point I was a lot more closed-minded. So I had the memory of that, and I was like, oh man, I really don't want to have to talk about this one again. But when I put it on that first time, I was like, damn, this is a lot more enjoyable than I remembered. And I've just been having fun with it. I mean, I don't own a copy right now, but I run across it at a store, I'll definitely buy it.
There you go.
These twofers are all great. I mean,
I got the twofer.
But the twofers you get, they're £5 each year. And you get 2 albums on one every time. But, you get bonus tracks on quite a lot of them. And they're all really well remastered from EMI. So, if you ever see them,
they're all out of print over here.
Oh, are they? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing
I've already got it.
Not you.
Oh,
the thing
Ryan needs it.
Yeah, and the thing I thought about with this album, my last point, I mean, obviously, like, Pet Sounds is maybe my favorite album of all time. I don't know. It's really high up there, at least.
Tell you that.
It's at least in my top 3 of all time, if not my favorite. So I realized the band could never do that again. And in my opinion, they didn't, even though I love a lot of stuff after. I mean, Smile and all that, Smiley Smile, etc. They never did Pet Sounds again. They never even came close, in my opinion.
No, that was the last time you ever got Beach Boys vocals like that ever again.
Or just the arrangements.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's done Pet Sounds.
Yeah, I mean, no one has. In the arrangements, and the production, and the vocals, etc. But
you got to have Brian arrange all that stuff, and he just didn't really give a shit anymore. So,
Well,
I think it's okay to have an album that's not brilliant, but it's just fun to listen to.
mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel about this album. I mean, I don't think it's a masterpiece by any means. I don't think it's like a highlight of their career, but I will say it's a lot of fun. And I think if you don't look at the reputation it has, I think it holds up okay in that 70s era. Like, I don't think it's any worse than like Carl and the Passions for me personally. Like, I think they're about on the same level.
I think Carl's a more interesting listen. But
I
will say
it's a good record.
I will say to completely back you up, Mike ostensibly in charge of the creative direction of the band and now in charge of the musical direction. It would have been so easy for this to be the Celebration disco album. Can you imagine that reality?
Mm-hmm.
Where we have that? That could have happened. So, you know, in 1977 or 78, when it was actually released, we get a Beach Boys album that sounds like the Beach Boys. Yeah, it's safe. Yeah, it's incredibly middle of the road and it takes almost no chances whatsoever. But that's so much preferable to Celebration's second album, which is... I think that single-handedly killed the disco genre.
Here we thought it was something else, but it was Celebration that killed it.
Yeah, no, it was a combination of that and cocaine.
Too much cocaine.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, I think we said it. We give it all about the same rating, between 2 and 3. So now I just wouldn't say, if you're getting into the Beach Boys, I don't think I'd recommend starting out with this. This record's a lot more for completists. I
wouldn't start with Pet Sounds either, though. That's a strange thing. Just because something's great doesn't mean it's a good start.
If I really was going to start out, I'd probably do Beach Boys today.
I would say Summer Days and Summer Nights.
I was going to say Summer Days, Summer Nights today, or actually, they are one of the few bands who, if you get that Endless Summer compilation, it's a brilliant compilation. They're one of the few bands who do have a sublime double album greatest hits that's just essential for anyone.
They hit it out of the park when they released that, and it's no wonder it was huge when it came out. It was, I think, it's perfect comp.
The reason why I say Summer Days and Summer Nights, I heard California Girls and it like changed my world as like a young teenager. I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
You know the song from that, and we won't go too much into that era because we will cover it, but ARP, what the hell's ARP?
AARP.
For the old people.
Oh, the pensioner crowd. You're So Good to Me did the same for me, and that's such a simple arrangement, but it shows how a simple arrangement can become a masterpiece. I mean, it's just nothing but the la, 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 la. It's that simple era, and every album that comes out, you can see the building blocks towards Pet Sounds, and what goes up must come down. Hey, I don't think the Beach Boys released a total stinker in the 70s, and the critics that say this is the worst album ever by a major rock band, as Ryan said, I think those people are absolutely nuts, and clearly I've heard about 10 records, because I guarantee you 3/4 of everything that Three Dog Night, for one, ever released is worse than this.
Oh, yeah. Fuck Three Dog Night.
Just
I got a 2 CD Three Dog Night comp.
Well, that is your the reason I use them is because that is a band who are intentionally just trying to sound like other better bands. That's why they do covers. So the Beach Boys trying to sound like the Beach Boys, I can forgive. Three Dog Night had no creativity and were still massive. So,
they filled in a void, evidently. All right, boys, let's wrap this dog up. I want to thank David Gallagher and Ryan Gavalier once again for yet another episode in our Beach Boys series.
Of course, it was a blast.
It's a blast. We got to determine. I think we talked about it before, and I think our next one we're gonna go into is Wild Honey.
Works for me.
Because we got
a little bit more.
We haven't hit any of the '60s stuff, so
I don't think we've left the '70s yet.
We haven't left. Well, we got to build up to that. We could do Oh God, no! Let's go do Wild Honey. I don't think I could take doing the '80s stuff yet. But anyway, I want to thank these gentlemen for coming on and discussing. It was a great discussion. And stay tuned because we will be doing Wild Honey. So keep your eye out. Thank you, Ernesto. Fun,
Thanks
guys.
for watching,
Great night,
folks.
everybody. All right, everybody have a good night. Like, subscribe. You know the whole deal. And these gentlemen, their links are below too. Subscribe to their channels. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Au revoir.